Hi, Class 10. This is Natalia here, and I'm with your classmate Tom. And he's going to give you a webinar today on energy efficiency. And he is with Energy Services Group. And Tom, can you tell us what Energy Services Group does?
We are a residential-based company. We work with builders and homeowners wanting to build new homes that are efficient, and we work with existing homeowners who want to make energy repairs to the home, who start with an energy audit and then go into the repairs of the home.
Great. So I'm going to hand it off to Tom, and you may hear me again asking clarifying questions as he goes through. But at this point, I'll just hand it on over.
Okay, so Natalia, I'm taking this into three really simple steps. Look for all the low cost and no cost measures and act on them. Whenever you buy an energy using product, look for the Energy Star logo. It's your indication it's significantly more efficient. And I encourage everyone to get an energy audit and open up the utility bill and look at the information on there. Without that information, you're really just hunting in the dark for solutions. Okay, I'm going to start with the energy audit side of it and why call a pro to come in and give you an energy audit. Well, we have some really cool tools that most of you don't have and have heard about. We're looking at health and safety issues. We always link to the Empower Maryland incentives, which are money to help you afford to do this. And it's very much like the rain tax in Anne Arundel County. You're getting charged for it. If you don't do anything about it, you can't get a rebate. Well, if you don't go through Empower Maryland, you're getting charged for it. And if you don't act on it, you're never going to collect the rebates and the incentives that support it. So let's go into what an energy audit is. The Princeton University research in 1978 sort of figured this all out and came up with the term house doctor. And they coined this interesting phrase, 1 plus 1 equals 3. How does that relate? Well, a blower door tells us one thing. IR, or infrared thermography, tells us another thing. When we combine the two techniques, we learn just about everything that's going on in that house. We may not act on everything because it's too complicated, too expensive, but we know everything. Now, let me give you a sense of what are all these toys. This is a blower door. The left-hand side, we're outside looking at it. Why the two rings? Well, if we got a big building, we can put two blower doors, one in the upper, one in the lower, and we can do a lot more in a bigger structure. And that picture on the right is the original house doctor, Ed Mensch, who's the man who taught me what I know. And he's starting to run the blower door. You see it in the bottom. It's just a big fan. It's calibrated. We use the tool to find leaks. We use the tool to know how much leakage we have. Okay, so that's the blower door, and it tells us leakage. It doesn't tell us we have poorly insulated. It doesn't. It tells us our windows are leaking or not leaking, but I cannot tell you the window's poorly insulated. That's why it's cold to you.
It tells you to investigate further.
It tells me where I have air leaking in, and it's very demonstrative. So it's really fun to be on an energy audit, and people say, my windows are horrible. We measure, first thing we collect is big leakage number. We go to the windows and say, you don't have much leaks from your windows. So where do we find the leaks? So the next thing is infrared. IR, infrared thermography, sees surface temperature. It's not telling me leakage. But with the blower door, it's telling me a thing called convection. On the left side of the screen is a bulkhead over a kitchen cabinet. On the right side of the screen is cold drywall. That's what the infrared is seeing. Now, why in the middle of a house do I have cold surfaces? I shouldn't. I'm up against the attic. But what's happening in this scenario is if I went to the attic and I pulled back the insulation, I could look down into that 1 foot by 2 foot bulkhead and see the drywall that's cold that I see with the infrared, or see the bottom of the drywall, or look down in the stud cavity that divides this kitchen from the room behind it. So in the winter, warm air is rising up through that, cold air is falling down through that, and the IR is telling me there is a flow path for warm air leaving the house.
Mhm.
Now, if I stuck a pressure probe into that drywall, I would see a pressure similar to the pressure that I have measured with my blower door to outside, meaning that's directly outside. But I'm in the middle of the house. I don't want that.
Exactly.
Let's show a more simple concept. We're looking at the attic access panel. Now, this is typically what we see before we turn on the blower door, and we walk around and do a baseline measurement of thermal properties of the house. What's the insulation like? And this immediately shows up as a thin piece of plywood with no insulation on it, or in some cases, the insulation's held 6, 10, 12 inches away because it's up there,
Mhm.
wherever there is, but it's not next to that or glued to that panel, so the panel shows up cold. And we want it to be as warm as the surfaces all around it. And I've got an insulated attic with an uninsulated access panel. So, simple idea. It's an
Mhm.
R value thing, an poor insulation thing. And here's a really bizarre example of thermal infrared. That bulkhead or bump out that you see is an architectural feature. We don't know why it's there, but it's there. But the picture on the right is showing the blue, pink blue is cold. These walls are in the middle of the house. They never want to be cold. They want to be warm. So let's go up in the attic. Let's pull back the 6-inch R19 fiberglass bat, and we're looking right into the middle of the house. Now, the grayish stuff you see on the left side, that's the drywall that was showing the infrared image of cold. What's on the floor is some of the insulation that fell down onto the deck of this platform or this void and sort of is not doing any work to make the house insulated
Mhm.
because it was a wide open hole that we really didn't have to work to find, although we're confirming it for the homeowner.
Makes
Now,
sense.
when is this hole a really big problem? Let's say there's ductwork running through this. Let's say a bathtub backs up to it. And most of the time when we see these voids, a bathroom has a specific geometry, the bathtub has a finite geometry, and the two don't align. So I just make a cavity behind the bathtub. Go into your house. You're going to find strange things in your footprint of the second floor or top floor, and you're going to, what is there? There's nothing. It's a hollow void in many cases. Does it have an airtight lid on it? If it doesn't, you have this problem going on. So easy for us to find with the blower door and the infrared. So shape really matters. The pictures we saw before were shapes on the inside, but the outside edge of the house has shape influences what we learn about the house. And Natalia, you were telling me you drive around parking lots with your mom, and you sort of look at the parking area and say, well, why aren't they on overhang? I look at snow melt on roofs, and I can start to see thermal image
Mhm.
or thermal defects. So this house, built on slab, um, forces the ductwork to be in some place that's kind of going to be kind of weird. Um, and what we learned about this house when I was doing the energy audit was, oh, they have bulkheads throughout the entire first floor because they didn't want the ducts up in the attic. Great. But that front overhang put the ductwork right next to an air leak zone. Because when this house was built in the 60s, we didn't know that that architectural detail was creating a leak path.
Gotcha.
So the air pushes through that bulkhead, because it's inside of a duct. Now, this is on the back side of the house, and this is the roof of the back side of the house. Those windows are the windows we were just looking out of. So this duct is right up against that roof line. And imagine you had a pile of snow on that roof.
Right.
That snow is slowly melting and freezing and melting and freezing. And we get these really beautiful looking things called icicles hanging off our houses. We never really want those beautiful icicles hanging off our houses. They tell us we have a thermal problem.
Interesting.
And when we have that problem, often we will get a water intrusion problem because the ice dam forces water uphill. It finds a way under the shingle. It might go all the way up to that wall roof intersection, and now it's coming through the drywall. And we're wondering, where's the roof leak? Well, it's the middle of the winter. It's not raining, it's snowing.
Right.
It's the ice dam that's causing it. Caused because of the ductwork that's a little heater to the underside of that roof, melting the snow.
Right.
And it's a very frustrating situation because without the right eyes seeing it, we're calling the roofer, we're calling the builder, the siding people, we're not calling the thermal expert to come in and see, diagnose, and prescribe. Okay. So 1 plus 1 equals 3 is a pretty neat concept. Since we're talking about ductwork, we always want, wherever possible, ductwork on the inside. When we put it up against the edge of the house, and in this case, the easiest way to get rid of that air handler was to shove it in a closet. No one knew what was behind the air handler. Well, it was a leaky zone. It was insulated, but it wasn't made airtight. So there was air pouring into this house behind that air handler, making it very hard to get to and fix. Because it's outside of the house, it's causing additional heat loss to the building. The ductwork in the attic is in the hottest place in the summer. It's in the coldest, relatively cold place in the winter. So it's never doing what we want it to do, which is stay in temperate zones of the home. Therefore, imagine a heat pump. It's 20 degrees outside. Heat pump's really working hard. Ductwork's up in the attic. The heat pump's only adding 15, 20 degrees to the temperature of the air from the return side. So if the house is at 70, maybe the air's at 90 degrees. If I have to run it through the attic, I'm going to lose some of that 90-degree air.
Yeah, you're just losing efficiency.
Losing efficiency, losing comfort, and the first amount of air that has to get pushed out of that pipe is going to be cold air.
Right.
Well, if that supply duct is over my head while I'm sleeping in bed, that's cold air blowing on me, waiting for it to come back on to be warm air, no different than the water pipe that I have to open to get the hot water to come to where I need it. It's all cold water for the first minute or two.
Right.
So that's why we don't want ducts in attics when we can avoid it. So here's a builder who was putting a second floor in a house, and when I visited, simple solution, hide the air handler in the attic. I don't have to deal with it. I get all that usable space, and I also get to hide all the duct leaks. And that is a 6-inch round duct with probably 20 little holes that are about 1/8 of an inch in square. There's probably 15 holes around that circumference of that fitting. That's a terrible thing to do, and that was built 8 years ago, and it shouldn't be there.
Right.
But it is, and it will be there for the rest of that home's life.
And, yep, that's unfortunate, and it's the homeowner who has to deal with it.
Yep. So
yeah.
If those ducts were inside the house and they were leaking out, well, it's lack of supply air, but the BTUs aren't lost to the outside. In this case, they're lost. If I lose that air, I have to make up that air in the house. So I have to bring outside air in because I'm pushing conditioned air out. The house is a finite amount of volume,
Right.
and any pressure exerted across it forces air to go in or out.
Right.
If these were return leaks, return air is going to pull air in. That air is going to inflate the house. If I inflate the house volume with new air, I have to push existing air out. So if I bring all my ductwork in, I have a more airtight house than ducts in the attic, or than a crawl space, or outside of the pressure boundary of the house. So ductwork is really problematic, can be really problematic to the efficiency of a home. So what's some simple things to do? The previous slide, sure, go after all those duct leaks, seal them up as best you can. Mastic is the tool of choice in that. It's like a spackle kind of thing, a gloved hand, goop in, smear it all over. You're great.
Okay.
In this situation, a floor duct, a floor boot, I want to seal all the edges of that. So here's sealed up.
How do you seal that, Tom?
I had a 2-inch wide foil tape that can buy. I actually got it for free off of a job site, but Home Depot, Lowe's, they'll sell a foil tape that's pretty durable. So I just put it around the edge, considering the amount of overlap that the register provides me, which covers the tape. Put it on, smooth it down, use gloves. In Natalia, that's why I use gloves.
Yeah,
I did
guys.
this on Sunday.
Use gloves or you'll cut your thumbs.
It's pretty sharp, feels like a cat scratch. And then put the register back on, and you'd never know I was there. Really simple thing to do. Takes about 15 minutes per register. Once you get proficient, you could probably do it in 5 or 10 minutes. Now, even worse than in the floor is up against the attic. So if you have a duct system in the attic, you want to take all the registers down. You want to find this gap. It will be this size or bigger. You want to put a little bit of tape, start on the drywall edge, put it down, bed it in real well, and then just fold it into the edge of the metal and go all the way around, and you'll know when it's airtight. You'll see that it's airtight. And then pay attention to where the air handler filter slot is. Is it covered? Is it airtight? Go buy 3-inch wide masking tape, the cheapest you can find, because you're going to take this off every couple of months to replace the filter and put in a clean one. So you're not going to spend a lot of money on expensive tape here because you're going to damage it frequently. So buy a roll of tape, stick it on this location every time you come to change the filter. Peel off a piece, stick the filter in, stick the tape over it. Now you got it sealed in place. And why we do this? Because if we spend a whole lot of money on a 95% efficient furnace, what's known as AFU, 95 AFU for this gas furnace, we want to get full utilization of that energy. Duct leakage is not like water leakage. We would find a water pipe leaking, hopefully. Really hard to find air leaking out of ducts. So we've got to go look for it specifically, fix it, absolutely, to make sure the air that we're buying, or the fuel that we're buying to create hot air, gets into our rooms.
Right.
And that the return side is the air from the house going back to the heater to be reheated. Right. And no disconnect in that loop as much as possible. So on the air conditioning side, we call it SEER, Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. It can't be less than 14. This is an example of a 15 SEER. The rebates that exist within Power Maryland start at 16 SEER, and they'll go as high as you're willing to spend. Higher the number, better for efficiency. If you're 10 years old, you probably have a 10 SEER unit. 8 to 10 SEER efficiency. And my mantra is, if I'm replacing it, double the efficiency. It's where you generally have cost effective. And then the other part of heating, cooling, and water heating, and here's the water heater. This is a low efficiency water heater. It's known as atmospheric venting. And the reason why I'm bringing it up, these are really critical to make sure I don't create spillage because that vent path is can be influenced by very small pressure changes in the house. This venting system competes for fresh air from the dryer, from exhaust fans, from range hoods, and they're easily distorting flow path, and we call it spillage. So any products of combustion from the water heater are going to come into the living space. We generally don't want that. If it's a high CO, not properly tuned appliance, and it's producing 500 parts per million CO, I'm going to quickly pollute the house, and I won't know unless I have a CO detector
Right.
in this room.
And by CO, you mean carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide.
So, big problem.
Yep. Odorless,
Mm-hmm.
tasteless, and an easy way to get headaches,
Mm-hmm.
blurred vision, dizzy, or overcome to the point where you die.
Right.
For a comparison, when you start your car produces about 10,000 parts per million CO until the catalytic converter has warmed up and is making the engine, or the exhaust from the engine,
Mm-hmm.
burn cleanly. So we never want to start our cars and run them in idle in
Right.
our garages.
Right. Right. And this is effectively doing something very similar.
Yep. So let's think about combustion. And what about fireplaces? You ever had a fireplace that backdrafts? So smoke get in your eyes from your fireplace? It certainly will if you have one of these in your home. This is a 1600 CFM range hood because the people just love to cook. But if I turn on that device, one, I'm burning a fire in the fireplace in the previous slide. Most likely, smoke and or flame will come rolling out of that fireplace because of the giant range hood. It's very easy to backdraft or spill these appliances. So if it's easy to spill the fireplace, what about the water heater? And CAS is combustion air zone. We've got to pay attention to combustion air zones and prove that they are not polluting because of something the homeowner might unintentionally do. You're not trained to know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I am, and that's why one of the first things I'm going to do as an energy auditor is combustion safety test.
Right.
I'm not going to be allowed to kill the patient while I'm doing surgery on their house. So, when we're paying attention to the duct system,
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, Natalia, I love that face.
That is so gross.
That is a furnace filter that I found in my brother's apartment. He rented only for 1 year, but he was told the maintenance guy came in every 6 months and changed the furnace filter. That furnace filter is probably 10 years old. He was complaining of poor airflow. The cold air just did not blow out of the ducts, even though they were in the attic in really weird places. And easiest thing, just let's go look at the furnace filter. It was so blocked, air wasn't flowing through it. But this is what was behind the furnace filter.
It's even grosser.
Yes. So maintenance? Nah, there wasn't maintenance. This was a 35-year-old apartment building. So that probably had never been cleaned. The furnace filter was replaced only when the tenant complained.
Right.
Not maintenance.
Not every
No
6
way,
months
no
does
how.
promise.
No. So you've got to look in the obvious places and the not so obvious places and take action. Okay, so taking us to the next ugly place that most people don't want to go is crawl spaces. It's easy to go in your basement. You can see all the fun things in the basement. But crawl spaces are really important. And around here, because we have water tables that are fairly shallow and we're close to the water, in some crawl spaces we have to leave them vented because we're in floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have flood vents or something to relieve pressure, let water flow into the foundation. But if we don't have a vented crawl space by purpose, we have it vented because the old building code said we had to, but we don't want vented crawl spaces. We like to think of crawl spaces as a basement I can't stand up in. Now, maybe I can't even kneel in the crawl space, it's so
Right.
shallow, but I want that crawl space to be like a basement. No direct holes to outside, insulated on the sidewalls, and if I have ductwork, I want that ductwork back inside the house. So I got to go in my crawl space and check it out. What am I looking for? I'm looking for standing water.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are crawl spaces which have standing water.
I believe that.
Imagine wintertime, a swimming pool in your crawl space. What's happening to that moisture? The moisture is being evaporated because the house is warm, it's kind of cold. Humidity flows
Mm-hmm.
downhill, so it's highly humid, less humid. Heat flows to cold. That water is being evaporated out of the crawl space and into the house.
Mm-hmm.
So why are my windows sweating? Could it be the crawl space? Could it be I've got exposed dirt? The dirt looks dry, but is it dry because the water's evaporating out of the dirt into the warm house? Absolutely. What that slide's showing is efflorescence, or the salts leaching out of the mortar
Mm-hmm.
that formed that concrete block. And that water is actually wicking out of the foundation because they have a downspout in the wrong place. They have a downspout that's directing water back in. They have poor grading, something. We got to fix that.
Right.
So we're learning about kick out flash, or flashing to
Mm-hmm.
kick water away from the foundation. There's many reasons why we do that in houses, as
Absolutely.
well as put the water back on the surface
Right.
and let it drain down in, but drain it away from the foundation. So let's get the debris out. Let's get the standing water out. Let's go find where there might be mold growth on wood. We don't have to run from the house because we have mold. We just have to pay attention to, let's dry out the wood. Once we dry out the wood, the mold dies. It can't live without water. We're okay at that point. If we can smell the crawl space in the summer, if it feels cold in the winter, we know it's a problem because smell is mold spores dying. So we don't have musty thing. We don't want that in
Right.
our house. Go and investigate. Okay, so we've been through the hard stuff with the energy audit and what's the house doing, and I encourage you all to go take a look at energy audits. Let's go to the easy stuff. Start simple. Replace with Energy Star whenever you're changing an appliance, and know your energy usage. It's where if you don't know you're using a lot of energy, you won't know to go fix something. Okay. So what's easy? Change light bulbs. They're discounted now because of Empower Maryland to be really, really cheap. That's an LED bulb. They used to be $10 a bulb. They're now probably less than $1 a piece because of the discounting that the utilities have leveraged through the retailers to say, sell those bulbs cheap, send me all the bulbs that the invoice for all the bulbs that you've sold, and we'll give you some of the money back to push the price down. Learn how to use your thermostat. Programmable thermostats are worthwhile. If you're gone from the house or asleep for 6, 8 hours at a time, set back, set up. They make sense. If you're not sure how to use it, go get a Nest thermostat. They self-program because it knows when you're in the house. And it decides how to use the house, use the heating cooling system efficiently without you having to tell it how to do that. Although you can influence it, and it will remember what you've told it to do. It's like a smartphone, but it's a smart thermostat. And you can even program them through your phone to tell it to turn on, turn off, and you don't have to be in your house. So really great technology coming our way. How about ceiling fans? They are absolutely wonderful in our climate to use in the summertime, but the only time it should run is when you're in the room. The ceiling fan is pushing air across your skin, and in the summer it's causing evaporation. And evaporation is a cooling sensation. You feel it when the wind blows. You feel a little cool. You might shiver certain weather days when the wind blows on you. Well, that's what the ceiling fans does. So in my house, I keep my thermostat at 78 to 80 in the summer. I run the ceiling fan at sleeping hours. I can keep the house slightly warmer. I don't have to have the house as cool, say 75, to get the same level of comfort. So, a house at 80 doesn't cost as much to air condition as a house at 75.
Absolutely.
That's the way I can lower my energy costs, and I buy Energy Star ceiling fans and put in Energy Star light bulbs, so I'm off to the races. Water efficiency, let's pay attention to it. If it's hot water, it's costing us money to make the hot water. It's costing us money to pay for the sewer bill and the water bill related to it. Or if I'm on a well, I've got to pump that water. I use electricity to pump it. Why waste the water? So, Energy Star rated laundry, so the washer, very high, low flow shower head, has adjustments that you can put on it. We're close to the Navy, and the term Navy shower should link to some people where you have to have your hand holding the valve open to get water to flow. Means you can't stand under the shower and just diddle. You've got to activate it. So Navy showers are pretty cool for some people. And certainly toilets. Sorry about the image, but that says Kohler 1.6. I changed this toilet out from a 3-gallon to a 1.6 because I can't buy a toilet that uses more water than 1.6 in the marketplace any longer. But we can get better than that. We can go to the dual flush or the single flush that are 1.2 and lower. So if I'm at 3 gallons and I switch to 1.6, I've cut my water use in half for toilet use, for flushing. So great improvement there. And then what about windows? If I've got south-facing windows, I choose to take my screens out. In the wintertime, I'm not going to open that window, but I want all the sunlight or as much of the sunlight to come through that glass and start to warm the house. It helps to grow the seedlings because we don't have what's known as a solar heat gain coefficient to the window or solar retarding of the screen, and I get as much of the sun benefit as possible. Today windows are integrated screens, so it's harder. These are 30-year-old windows, so they have separate screen from glass and very accommodating for me. So in the winter, I let the sun shine in and get my plants to grow on the south side and get the room to be warm. And this is my favorite room on a sunny day.
The plants are beautiful.
Thank you. That bougainvillea is 15 years old.
Wow.
And I keep nurturing it along and love it. My favorite plant. So start simple. Make wise investments. Look for the Energy Star logo.